Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're completely rethinking why you might be struggling to stick to your new habits. Quick note before we really get going. This is for educational purposes, right? So if you're seriously struggling with your mental health or focus, definitely consult a professional. But for our day-to-day habit building, man, we are about to unlock a totally new system.
So let me ask you this. Have you ever woke up, decided today is the day, you tried harder, gritted your teeth, and still somehow quit by day 11? Yeah, we've all been there. It's that infamous 11-day cliff. You wake up early, you push through the resistance, you feel so proud of yourself, and then suddenly, less than 2 weeks later, you miss a day, and then another. Boom, you fall right back off the wagon. It is a terrible, frustrating feeling, and it honestly makes you feel like you just don't have what it takes. But I really want to validate that struggle for you right now, because it's a completely universal human experience. It is absolutely not just you.
Because here's the real truth. You don't lack willpower. You lack an identity. And honestly, once you figure that out, absolutely everything changes. See, failing to stick to a habit isn't about a lack of discipline. In fact, trying to force behavior change by purely relying on willpower is literally a scam. Growth just doesn't happen because you try harder. It happens when you stop trying to hack your surface-level behavior, and instead you start changing who you believe you are at your core.
Which brings us to section 1. Willpower was never the point.
We really need to debunk this whole hustle culture myth that success is just about this endless, grueling discipline. It's kind of an uncomfortable truth for a lot of people, but willpower is a genuinely terrible long-term strategy. I mean, it treats every single healthy choice you want to make like an actual fight that you have to win. And who wants to be fighting all day long? Willpower is a finite resource. It literally runs out by 3 p.m. It crumbles the absolute second you get put under stress at work, or maybe you get into an argument with a friend. Just think about someone who's trying to force themselves to go to the gym after a 10-hour workday. They have to drag themselves there through sheer force of will, and eventually, that will just breaks. But identity? Identity doesn't get tired. It's your automatic default. If you truly believe you are a runner, you don't have to force yourself to run. You just do what runners do. So the goal isn't behavior change, it's becoming someone for whom that healthy behavior is just utterly, completely normal. So instead of asking, how do I get more discipline, ask yourself this. Who is the person who already has the result I want, and how do they operate day to day? This completely shifts your focus away from forcing a behavior and pushes it toward adopting the mindset of your future self. You basically want to start reverse engineering their daily operations. Like, how does a healthy person grocery shop? How does an organized person unpack their bag after a trip? You just start mimicking those operations. Which leads us perfectly into section 2. Microproof, small actions, big identity shifts. So how do we actually build this new identity? Well, you don't do it with one massive, dramatic decision where you declare to the world that you're a brand new person. You build an identity through tiny, undeniable pieces of evidence. In step 1, you do an incredibly small action. Maybe you read just one single page of a book, you make your bed, or you take a quick 10-minute walk. In step 2, by doing that, you're essentially casting a vote for your new identity. Think about someone who has always believed they're a messy person. If they take 30 seconds to simply put their shoes in the closet instead of kicking them onto the floor, they aren't just cleaning up. They are casting a tiny vote that says, hey, I am an organized person. It's really not about the outcome of that one tiny action. It's the proof it provides to your brain. You're telling yourself, see, I am actually someone who follows through. And by step 3, you've stacked enough of those tiny votes that your brain just stops arguing with you, and that new identity simply becomes your accepted default. Okay, moving right along to section 3, designing your default environment. Because listen, no matter how many votes you cast, your inner motivation is deeply, deeply unreliable. You just cannot count on how you're going to feel tomorrow morning. But you know what you can count on? Your physical space. Let's actually pause for a second and anchor this concept because it is so incredibly vital. Remember what we established at the beginning of this explainer? Willpower is a scam. Motivation runs out at 3 p.m. But your environment doesn't. If you take absolutely nothing else away from our time today, remember that your environment is the one thing that stays consistent, even when your energy levels completely crash. If your gym clothes are buried in the bottom of a drawer, or your junk food is sitting right at eye level in the pantry, you are existing in a high-friction environment. You have to fight that friction every single day, and eventually, friction always wins. Think about the super relatable reality of doom scrolling in bed. If your phone charger is right next to your pillow, man, that is an incredibly low-friction choice. It is so easy to just reach over and scroll for 2 hours. We need to flip the script on this. Create low friction for the good habits and high friction for the bad ones.
Put the book you want to read directly on your pillow. Move that phone charger into the kitchen so you physically have to get out of bed to plug it in. Just make the behavior of your future self the absolute easiest option in the room, and make the behavior of your old self kind of annoying to pull off.
Next up, Section 4, Tools for Unstoppable Momentum. Now that your space is all set up, let's look at some specific science-backed psychological tools that will literally do the heavy lifting for you so you don't have to rely on daily motivation. The first tool is a commitment device. These are decisions your past self makes that completely box in your future self. It removes tomorrow's ability to back out. Imagine texting a close friend and saying, "Hey, if I don't email you the finished draft of my project by Friday at 5 p.m., I owe you $50. You have just engineered a situation where backing out is actually significantly harder and more painful than just doing the work. You are totally automating your follow-through. The second tool is absolutely fascinating. It's called the Zeigarnik effect. This is the psychological tendency where your brain just hates unfinished business. Open loops sit in your working memory like a bunch of background tabs on your web browser, quietly draining your focus until they're finally closed. We've all experienced this. Think about a time you typed out an important email, but you got distracted and left it sitting in your drafts folder. That unsent email kind of haunts you while you're trying to eat dinner or watch TV, right? This is exactly why starting a task, even for just 2 minutes, makes it dramatically easier to finish. Your brain wants closure so badly, it'll practically pull you back into the task to finish what you started. In fact, the reason the Zeigarnik effect works so incredibly well is because your brain simply cannot stand to... Did you feel that? That mental itch? That slight annoyance that I didn't finish the sentence? That right there is the Zeigarnik effect in action. When you leave things open, your brain demands that you complete them. All right, let's jump to Section 5, Stacking Your Habits and Protecting Energy. This is how we take everything we've learned and make sure it runs in the background of your life like a highly optimized operating system. First, habit stacking. You attach a new behavior to one that is already deeply ingrained and automatic. So after I pour my morning coffee, I'm going to sit down and write 3 priorities. You're essentially hijacking a habit loop that already exists on autopilot. Next, you absolutely must protect your cognitive energy. It is a limited currency. Engage in deep work. Give your hardest tasks unbroken, high-focus blocks instead of shredding your attention across a dozen different things. Every time you switch tasks, you're paying this hidden context switching tax right out of your mental energy bank, so keep those blocks unbroken. And finally, externalizing. Write things down. Do you ever lay in bed with your mind just racing about all the stuff you have to do tomorrow? Yeah, that's because you're trying to use your brain as a storage drive. Keep a brain dump notepad right next to your bed. Write it all down to free up that mental RAM so your brain can actually do the deep thinking and the resting instead of just the remembering. Which brings us to the grand thesis of our explainer today, the automatic system. Look, none of this works because you magically found more discipline. It works because you stopped relying on discipline in the first place. You built a system where the right choice is easy, the environment does the reminding for you, and your new identity does the deciding. Growth stops being this thing you have to forcefully manufacture, and it starts being something that just automatically happens in the background of a life that you've deliberately designed for it. So I want to leave you with a provocative question today to spark that very first vote for your new self. What is the one micro action you're going to start today to prove your new identity to yourself? Really think about it. Choose something incredibly small, design your physical environment to make it completely frictionless, and let that single action be the undeniable proof of who you are becoming. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I honestly can't wait to see the identity you build.